Ohio State absolutely routs Oregon 41-21
Nobody saw
in the
that coming.
111th granddaddy of them all, which is known as the Rose Bowl. How disappointing for Oregon, man, to not show any signs of life until the game was over. It was the biggest halftime deficit in a bowl game since Bama throttled Notre Dame in 2013. And then Ohio State's biggest win over a number one program in 20 years. So absolutely huge. Give me some of your takeaways. And if you want to answer this one first, is Ohio State now the best team in the country with this win?
Ohio State possibly is the best team in the country because they dethroned the best team in the country.
Right.
And the reason why I'll stand by
They
that,
humiliated them too.
they humiliated them on a big stage. They beat a SEC, really good SEC opponent in Tennessee. They routed them, didn't give them a chance, put their foot on their neck, didn't let up.
Yep.
They're pissed about that Michigan game.
Oh,
They're
yeah.
mad. That didn't showcase what Ohio State football was about at all.
Nope.
And it's hard to beat the same team twice. I keep reiterating this.
It's true, though.
Podcast in, podcast out.
Right.
It's hard because they reshape against you, you reshape against them, and you see how the odds stack up. Now, what I'll say is, like I'll say again, Ohio State, full of piss and vinegar.
Yes, they were.
Over that loss against Oregon earlier in the season.
Yep.
By 1 point.
Yep. Into which Ohio State could have came down and won if they would have managed the clock well enough. They were marching.
It came down to clock management. Ryan
Will
Day
Howard
just fell short.
Yep.
And Will Howard as well. Now, Will Howard, we'll get to him in just a minute. Oregon, they lost to. And then the heated rivalry game, the flag planting, the whole 9 yards against Michigan. Go blue in that situation, but because that's my Big Ten team. But in any case, they beat them convincingly. It wasn't even close.
Never was close.
I'm going to say something. They went duck hunting, so to speak. Literally went duck hunting. Like the Penn State game, they really just controlled it the whole time. They cut Oregon's defense up on the ground.
Yep.
Through Travion Henderson.
Yes,
had one of his best games of his career.
8 on a 94.
Exactly. Had one of his best games of his career.
Yep.
On a grand stage in the Rose Bowl, which arguably should be the national championship every year.
Yeah.
I'm not going to get into
a phenomenal game.
It's always a phenomenal game. Even Wisconsin was there a few years back. They also cut them up through the air. Will Howard was insane.
The Jeremiah Smith show.
He put it on. But I'm not gonna. I'll give Dylan Gabriel credit where it's due. He did everything he could. He had like 299 yards and 2 touchdowns, something like that. He did everything they could, but rushing ultimately decided this game.
Mm-hmm.
Oregon's defense just could not keep up with Ohio State at all.
Nope.
Ohio State was like, okay, we see where we went wrong here against Oregon. They got a rare second chance against Oregon.
They did. Yep.
They beat Penn State. Okay. Then they lose to Michigan, their biggest rivalry game. Okay. All right. Big deal. They get a second chance to redeem themselves against Tennessee. They do it. They do it 2 weeks in a row.
Yep.
They're arguably the best team in college football right now because of all the momentum they have.
Oh, yeah.
All of the they got stuff on their shoulders, man. They're trying to work it off. They're like, we got to get this monkey off our back.
Mm-hmm.
We know we lost to Michigan. We know we lost to Oregon, but we just beat Oregon. Now let's see if we can win the big one.
Right.
Let's see if we can beat Texas. If we can beat Texas, I think we could beat them all. And if they do beat Texas, I'd really be hard to choose against them. It'd be really hard to choose against.
I think they beat Texas. They
I
might beat
do.
Texas
I
comfortably.
definitely think they beat Texas comfortably. Well, not
Mhm.
necessarily comfortably. I think that between the 3 and 7 margin, but I'm not gonna get too carried away with that. Um, because like I said before, I do predict Ohio State and Notre Dame in this college football national championship. But yeah, man, they were just the better team through in and throughout. Ryan Day had his guys ready to go, and they had faced adversity this year, and adversity is a big thing. Having that chip on your shoulder will power
Oh,
you to
yeah.
do a lot of things, and
That
I
loss
think
to
that's what
Michigan might have been the best thing for them
exactly. It was
because
a
we've seen
serving.
another version of Ohio State ever since then.
Exactly. We didn't see that Nebraska game, Ohio State. We saw
Nope.
this new Ohio State emerge, and it was a spoonful of good medicine for them.
Yep.
But I'm gonna let you take the floor on this.
Yeah. Thank you, bro. I feel like earlier in the show, did I say something boneheaded? Did I?
Well, elaborate.
I feel like I mentioned Chip Kelly earlier,
I don't remember,
and
but you may have.
I feel like I mentioned Chip Kelly earlier, and I know that's not correct because Ohio State is
I mean, he coached Oregon in
yeah.
2010.
Chip Kelly is the OC for Ohio State. I'm not going to overthink it. I just feel like I said that earlier.
UCLA's former head coach.
Right. I don't want anyone coming after me and roasting me. But anyways, like we said, Ohio State's biggest win over a number one program in 20 years, biggest halftime deficit in a bowl game. So disappointing for the Oregon fan base. I mean, they really felt like it was their year. You and I had predicted multiple times it was in Oregon and Georgia.
I hope
Um,
for them.
yeah, for a national championship, and knowing all the good players and rosters over the years that Oregon has had, and they're still falling short, still looking for that first ever national championship. I 100% say yes to the question of Ohio State being the best team in the country right now, because who looks better than them? Nobody looks better than Ohio State right now. They throttle Tennessee. They blow out the best team in the country to our belief in Oregon, and just looks like they're there
I
to
couldn't
handle
dis-
business from
I
here on
couldn't
out.
agree more. Excuse me.
You're good. Chip on the shoulder is crazy. I mean, the chip that they are playing with right now is something that we haven't seen from this team really at all. And I feel like Dan Lanning has a new level of coaching to reach now. It's kind of like when we
Mhm.
saw Dion at Colorado a couple years ago. Okay, you're in the Big 12, you won a couple of games, but now you got to realize that you don't have your trenches built up. Dan Lanning comes over to the Big 10. You win the Big 10, you get the bye, you're the 1 seed, and you get absolutely obliterated. So there's levels to this as you get to these big time playoff games. And just
Absolutely.
to know
You
that you
didn't
had three and
become
a
Nick
half weeks.
Saban and Bobby Bowden overnight.
No. You can become that over a decade of solid coaching for sure, but not even, overnight or even in 10 games potentially. 3.5 weeks to prep, 11 days specifically to prep for Ohio State, a team who you've beaten already, despite we know how that one did end. I was shocked at how Dan Lanning coached at this one, Alan, because we've seen him break out onside kicks, go forward on fourth down,
Mhm.
pull off fake punts in negative territory.
He's
And there was none
passive.
of that in this game. Now, we know Ohio State has the best defense in the country without questioning when you look at it on paper, but a couple of instances from the game. Oregon chose to punt on 4th and 1 from the own 34 on the opening drive, which that's understandable. You're only trailing 7-0. But a couple of
Mhm.
drives later, Oregon punted on 4th and 6 from midfield, down by 2 scores. That's not like Dan Lanning. Then they're down by 3 possessions, technically 17-0. The Ducks again punted, facing a 4th and 4 from their own 31. In the second half, they also punted on 4th and 4 from their own 41. When trailing 41-15. So it just felt like is Dan Lanning really wanting to break this explosiveness out, or does he just truly believe that he's down and out on this one? And when you have a guy like
Yeah.
Jeremiah Smith going for 5 for 161 and 2 touchdowns in the first half, finishing the game for 7 for 187 and still 2 touchdowns. I mean, guy's a true freshman, and Dan Lanning said he could go to the NFL right now. He attacks the
Part
ball extremely well in the air. He's a crisp route runner. I thought Emeka Ibuka was going to be the big time guy that was talked about this year, but no, it is Jeremiah Smith, and they have yet again produced another elite wide receiver, it looks like. Even Will Howard in the first quarter, career best 212 passing yards after he set a career best last year. Or not last year, after he went off last game for 160 yards in the hot start against Tennessee.
Mhm.
They come out so quick, 3 plays, 49 seconds, and they're on the board. I mean,
Right.
a play action screen pass to Smith, he gets through there for the 45-yard score, and really the rest of it is history. We didn't know if this team was kind of capable of doing this, though, man. I mean, like we said, we see the Oregon game, we see the Michigan game, Nebraska game, maybe not so much Oregon, but you look at Michigan and Nebraska, and you're like, those are some ones that, definitely stick out to you because, Chip Kelly, he can get a little stubborn about running the ball and when it doesn't work. And then
Absolutely
you kind of
can.
have Ryan Day wanting to come in, airing it out more. And clearly what they had through the air is the big reason why they played that way. They score on 6 of their first 7 drives. Of course, it's
Them
a
CJ
34 nothing
Stroud days.
lead. I'm telling you, a 34 nothing lead late in the second quarter, and then you have Travion Henderson basically put it away in the third at
That's the
41 to
dude.
15. Yeah, Travion went off. Quinshaw Junkins went off as well too, man. But I want to talk about Oregon's defense yet again getting exposed and just flat out having to
Dan
play in a
Lanning's a
shootout.
defensive guy too. That's the sad part.
That's the crazy part. Against Penn State, 518 yards of offense, and Penn State actually outgained Oregon. Oregon just won the football game. They gave up 467 to Ohio State the first time, and they had to put up almost 500 to win that one by one.
Yep.
They gave up 369 to Boise State and like 180 plus rushing to Ashton, and then another 500 even to Ohio State on New Year's Day. That's
Yep.
not going to win you a national championship. You
No.
cannot give
No,
up
no, no,
500
no.
yards in big games and expect to win. When you look at the fact that 2 of their last 3 games, they gave up over 500 yards of offense. They played Penn
That's too
State in the
much.
last game of the year. They had the bye. They gave up 518. They play Ohio State on their last game of the year in the playoffs. They gave up 500 even. This Oregon defense was just broken at this point, and Ohio
Yeah.
State and Ryan Day picked up on
I
that.
broke down film
Yep,
big time.
and there's just they did, and clearly Ryan Day prepared his guys more than Dan Lanning did, and Dan Lanning came
Yeah.
out and said, "No excuse, I didn't get my team prepared." There's no excuses to make. There were
I
no missed
love
calls.
that on him. I
Oh
love that.
yeah, Dan Lanning is the best young coach in college football next to Marcus Freeman right now.
Yeah.
There were no missed calls or unfortunate penalties that really swayed the game. There were no refs to blame. Really, no injuries that felt like really affected it. Yeah, Jordan James left. Evan Stewart, tweaked an injury in pregame warmups, but I don't think either of those guys really would have made that big of a difference. Just seeing how the game played out. I think the most embarrassing part is Oregon ended the game with negative 23 rushing yards on the day. Now, of course, in college football, whenever you get sacked, the sack yardage takes away from that, but 43 yards of sack yardage. If you take that away, Oregon still only had 20 carries on 20 yards on 16 carries, Alan.
Yeah.
0.8 yards per carry. So Ohio State
Unacceptable.
was just shutting everything down. Dylan Gabriel sacked 8 times. And you know that Oregon's offensive line was elected for the Joe Moore Award, which is the
It
most
was.
outstanding offensive line in college football. They looked piss poor. The offensive line was full of piss poor performances. They
It
weren't
was
full of piss and vinegar like they should have been, like Ohio State was.
right,
Ohio State was
exactly.
ready. They were
They
ready on
were.
all facets.
I think
And
I think Oregon came into this game like thinking, "Oh, we're gonna win."
Mhm.
That's a detriment. That's rat poison, as the great Saban would call it.
Oh yeah, 100%. Defense is playing and O line is getting better. 100%, Brian. Y'all are peaking at the right time, and I can't pick against y'all. I'm picking Ohio State to win it all. We're going
Yeah.
to predict, obviously, on the next show that we have on Tuesday about the Cotton Bowl and the Orange Bowl, but this is the best team in the country right now,
From
no
where I sit
question.
right now, Brian, I see Ohio State and Notre Dame battling it out for the big one. I
Yep,
really do, man, because to
yep,
me, they both passed the eye test.
right. They do, they do, and I wouldn't be shocked if Penn State snuck in there
Yeah,
as well.
no doubt.
Yes, sir. Y'all continue to get in the chat in the comments.